Hey there, welcome into another edition of UP Power. Keegan Cooper and Kevin McNulty joining you. A little bit less to talk about these days as, we start to thaw out and get ready for baseball and softball to pick up. But here in the UP, senior day for NMU women's lacrosse this past weekend. Minnie Patel shined once again as the Cats pick up another GLIAC win. And, going into the final weekend of the season, feeling pretty good against Grand Valley, a test there for sure against the Lakers.
Yeah, it will be a test, Kevin. And you look at their first meeting and talking with Lindsey Majkrzak, their defense is going to have to be a focal point, and it's going to have to be there from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. They know their offense is capable of scoring. Just recently, they played Concordia St. Paul. They put up 21 goals. The game before that against Davenport, they had 18. They had a really good third quarter against Grand Valley the first time. So the offense is there, but I think, that age-old saying of defense creates offense. So if they can get some stops against the Lakers, it's going to create some offense. Minnie Patel, great. Josie Lukowski, great.
They've been really good. I think the
really
defense
good.
is what Lindsey's been talking about. Speaking of Lindsey Majkrzak, Matt Majkrzak is coming up later in the show, so excited to toss to our interview with Matt that we just recorded. So awesome stuff with him. But working on that defense is where Lindsey's been talking about making improvements because, offensively with Patel, Lukowski and company, Patel going over 200 career goals, which is extremely impressive. They're kind of set in that department. I don't want to say it's a sure shot that the offense is going to be there against Grand Valley, but
they're good at
that's where they've been consistent.
Yeah, they've been consistent offensively. Now, can they be consistent defensively? I think yes, but we also have to recognize that Grand Valley State is now number 8 in the nation. They're a powerhouse.
They've been playing
team.
really well.
But I think that they'll be better. After you play a team one time, you're always better prepared. You learn a lot. Especially if you lose. And I think the Cats and head coach Lindsey Majkrzak, I think that they've learned from that. So now they're going to come in. They got to have their defense on point. They also have to take care of business against Davenport and Concordia St. Paul, 2 other GLIAC teams that they've already beaten, right?
Right.
When you look at Concordia St. Paul, they're a quick team. And it showed when they just recently played them, right?
Yeah.
They allowed 12 goals. And that was because their defense was lacking. And you saw it in that game in the third and fourth quarter when Lindsey Majkrzak calls the timeout in the third quarter with like 12 and a half minutes left, talks to the defense, and the defense goes out there, gets 4 stops in a row. They score 4 goals on those stops, and now they started to build the lead, and eventually, they end with a 9-goal win,
It was pretty clean, 9-goal win. I think you'll take it.
Yeah, 21
this deep
goals,
into the conference
21
season.
goals is very impressive. You don't see that. You don't see, 18.
And consistently. They've been up there.
Consistently be in the high teens, and then to break to 20 goals, that's, but the test for them is going to be defensively. Can they stop the high-level offense that Grand Valley, State has?
For sure. I told you covering a national championship lacrosse team 2 years ago in Maryland that they rarely put up, over 20 goals a game. Now, they had some of the best defense in the country, part of the reason why they were national champions. But that is impressive stuff from Lindsey Majkrzak's squad as they move forward. We'll be following along with them. But track and field out in California this weekend, they had some travel issues getting out there. I talked to Jenny Ryan briefly yesterday about that. Maddie Szymanski getting off the jet, going right, to the site there at Long Beach to run a race, and in the 1,500 meter, they are outstanding, finished 1 and 2. So a good weekend for NMU track and field too.
Yeah. Despite the delays, they have to change in the airport. They get there 20 minutes before the race, and they still have great finishes. The 4x100 meter relay team, talking with Jenny Ryan today, other than the one handoff mishap, it was a great race.
Yeah.
And they get that one handoff mishap corrected, and they're looking at a top time headed here into this season. Some other outstanding performances in the 5K, and really she said, the athletes across the board, the whole team had some really great performances. And I asked her about, the difference in, competing against teams that you may not normally see, right? When they were out in California, there were teams from all over.
For sure, yeah.
Maybe some teams that they'll see later on and see throughout the season, but, none of their conference teams. So it's a great benchmark to put yourself up against some of those other teams that you're not going to see, and it breeds success, right? You're racing against somebody on your left and right you've never seen, so you just got to go out there and do your thing.
Right, and in a sport like track and field, at the end of the day, it all depends on what you do, what your time is. But still having that measuring stick of other schools that you don't normally go up against is probably beneficial for a team, especially at this point in their season.
Yeah, and then coming up now, they'll go to Motor City here on Friday, and they'll be against a couple teams that they'll see. Wayne State will be there, so that's a benchmark for them against a team that they'll see in conference. But exciting stuff to see. Track and field back. The weather's getting a little bit warmer now.
Yeah, right.
And the success that they've already had, and the success that they'll have throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, we'll see where they take it going forward through the spring season. It's hard to believe the semester at both schools we cover closely is kind of wrapping up. So those seasons are flying by. NMU men's and women's golf, also GLIAC championships already. And some good stuff from both of those squads. I know Eric Johnson talked to you today. What did he have to say about the men going down to the GLIACs, and now it's the women's turn?
Yeah, when we'll start with the women, and I think we have to point out Maya Hunter, who just recently got her first collegiate win.
Yeah, that was great.
Kind of an outstanding win when you look at what she was able to accomplish. Being in second place after the first round, and then coming back on round 2 and taking the lead, and then taking the lead by 6 strokes, had 5 birdies on the weekend. What an incredible performance, and the rest of the women's team there along with her to make sure that happened, and now they prepare for GLIAC championships. And Eric was like, we expect Maya to be kind of a big part of that, and that boost after winning your first collegiate win, I think will be huge for them heading into GLIAC championships. The men, still waiting to see how rankings and things go out for the regionals, and we'll have to wait and see how all that stuff goes. Eric was talking about rankings can be up here, down there, so we'll have to wait and see there. But they still had a phenomenal season regardless, and looking to improve for the next year.
Yeah, it's fun watching Eric Johnson his first year, bringing a lot of UP golfers up as recruits too.
Yeah.
So should be fun to watch those two programs kind of move forward and perhaps flourish if they aren't already. So
yeah, and the thing that's interesting is I talked to him about the struggles of location and being where we are. And, it's tough. So they have a lot of travel to go down. They play a lot of golf, near Escanaba and stuff. And a lot of times, students will have class and then they'll travel down to get a tee time because there's not as much snow.
So about golfers when you got to golf all the time.
Yeah, and very thankful for NMU and what they've done for the program and getting a simulator and getting these things and their practice inside sometimes because you got to get out there. Maybe if you're not playing around at 18, you can work on your form. You can get on the putting.
But still being ready to compete.
In
the winter and spring when the weather here is typically not great. So. Fun to watch, keep track with them. We also had Tech football playing their spring game this past weekend. More of an open practice. There were quite a lot of people there. 26 of the 32 incoming recruits in the class of 2024 were there. Mentioned a few of them when we aired that story on Saturday night. Noah Johnson, who, if you remember, flipped to go up to Tech. He's a beast from Kingsford.
Yep.
Ben Johnson from Eski. You have Matthew Kolovecki from Iron Mountain, a bunch of UP kids. Lakeland and Hubble, Gabe Popko coming right down the road. There's another Lake going to Tech to play football. So that was cool to see out on the field. They were there taking it all in, just like we saw at NMU the week before with the kids moving on to be Wildcats. But on the field, I think Tech is in a really good spot going forward. They're 5-5 last year, 1-5 in the GLIAC. That's the mark that they need to improve on going forward. Year 2 under Dan Metlack. He obviously had way more of a foundation when he started last season as opposed to Shane Richardson at NMU. So Metlack moves up 5-5 in year 1, and that's a decent mark. But in the conference, I think they need to start taking those games against the teams not named Grand Valley and Ferris. Perhaps they can pull off one of those games next season. But I wouldn't count on that with those two programs and where they've been. But improving on that 1-5 GLIAC mark will be huge. They have Alex Freeze coming back as the quarterback. He was country clubbing it. I told you that.
Country clubbing it.
That's what he told me out there when I was talking to him on Saturday. He said, "Yeah, I'm in a good spot. Some guys there to compete with him, and likely end up being his backups next year. But they're in a really good spot. Mark Sipple coming back. The linebacker on defense was Olgliak. So you look at their defense. A lot of returners on both sides of the ball. I like where Tech football is. Like I said, Freed's coming back at quarterback. Dan Matlack being a former quarterback, I think their relationship is really strong.
I think they're going to gel because they're going to have the same mindset of what they
saw a lot of it last year. Freeze wasn't perfect. There were some games where he didn't show up. I think back to the Davenport game, I think they only had a field goal in that game, and it didn't look great. But by the end of the season, you saw like the chemistry offensively. Of course, it helped with Darius Willis, was Olgliak. In the backfield as well. He was really good, so they'll be missing that a little bit. But I think it's strong going forward. Like I said, it was an open practice. It was all scripted. Didn't get to see a ton, but you saw the pieces were there, and especially with those recruits coming in, a lot of talented ones like Noah Johnson that could make an impact pretty soon here for the Huskies. So we'll see where they go, and
see what happens.
Before we know it, it's going to be football season.
Yeah, I know. We're going to blink here.
NFL draft next week in Detroit.
Yeah.
Lions and Packers both picking late first round. It'll be really great to have Detroit in the spotlight. If they weren't when the NCAA men's basketball regional was there a couple weeks ago, things are looking straight back at Detroit. Of course, it helps after the Lions had the season that they had, but everyone's going to be paying attention to the NFL draft next weekend. Caleb Williams going number 1 to the Chicago Bears. How about that? A bunch of quarterbacks will go in the first round. None going to the Lions or Packers. They have their quarterbacks. It'll be fun to figure out. Obviously, in the division, there's a lot of talk about the Vikings trading up to get a quarterback. A lot of talk about it being J.J. McCarthy, who played in this state at Michigan, won a national championship, 15-0 for the Wolverines, and go blue last year. That would be interesting. And obviously in Chicago, you have the rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams, who's coming to inherit a pretty strong roster, a team that was 7-10 last year. The division is going to be really fun. Obviously, it's the Lions to lose. They're the defending champions. They went to the NFC title game.
Yep.
You look at what the Packers did in Dallas in the playoffs, and obviously we know where the Lions are, and you have a team like the Bears coming up is a huge question mark because you don't know what you're going to get about it from the rookie quarterback. And then you have Minnesota, which has really strong defense, and Cousins got hurt last year, which kind of derailed their season. Other than that, they're definitely in the mix for the playoffs, and they even were for a while once Cousins went down. So all 4 teams could be playoff teams next year.
A conference with 4, other than, golf, I would say, though. A conference with young quarterbacks is going to be exciting. Young quarterbacks.
Well, you see it in the AFC when you have the Burrow and Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and even throw Tua in there. The AFC has that generation of quarterbacks, on lock. And in the NFC, it's a little bit different. The Lions won a lot last year with Jared Goff as their quarterback. Was he the primary reason? Probably not, but he was the perfect quarterback for that team. Brock Purdy, same situation, obviously the team that ended up representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, you're right about that. In the NFC, it could look a little different. I failed to mention C.J. Stroud now in the conversation. With those AFC quarterbacks and what they've done this offseason to get better. So, curious to see, how it shakes out in the NFC. Obviously, Jalen Hurts had a down year last year. Talk about that, but he's a quarterback that got paid and is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So, football season will be here before we know it.
Will be here before we know it. And I think, too, the draft, I think a lot of times some people may slide it under the rug and, it doesn't matter. But I think for these teams that are...
I think the first round is so interesting this year with, like I mentioned, probably going to be 5 quarterbacks to go in the first round.
I picked my, draft pick. I think there'll be 7 quarterbacks.
Did you make a mock?
I made a mock. I think
7 in the first round?
In the first round.
You're crazy.
I think there'll be 7 in the first round.
List your 7. So he lied. It's not going to be 7 in the first round.
I think it's going to be 7.
No, you're gonna have Caleb go. You're gonna have Drake May go. You're gonna have Jaden Daniels probably go 2. Actually, I kind of misordered them. JJ McCarthy will go in the top 5. So that's 4 in the top. Top
so
10
then you
for
see
sure.
3 other ones.
Yeah,
I can't name 3 other ones. But
yeah, it's probably gonna be Bo Nix, Michael Penix.
And that's 6.
And 2 guys out of the Pac-12. So it's not going to be 7, but it's going to be 5 or 6 to go in the first round.
I would say 7. Throw 1.
And then you throw in the wide receivers in there. Roma Dunze is listed as the 3rd wide receiver in a lot of mocks right now. Actually projected to go to the Bears at 9 in a lot of those mocks as well. Then you have Malik Neighbors and, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. probably going to go in the top 10. So you just have all these skill position players that are going to go so early. And what they keep saying about this draft is it's top heavy. So you're really zeroing in on those first couple of rounds to, we got to hit on these guys because, our 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks could have potential to be big playmakers in the league, but you're not going to hang your hat on it.
Yeah, I mean, your first 2 rounds are going to be your bread and butter, and then everything else is, again, not that those athletes are not going to be successful, but
like I said, it's top heavy. So, a couple of teams are going to hit on their late round picks, and they're going to be fortunate because of it. You just don't know who it's going to be. It's kind of a crapshoot.
You don't, and it's wild to think that we're going to have a draft where so many quarterbacks go, right? Because you think about when people talk about
I don't think it is because everyone's trying to do what the Chiefs did.
Bring in Patrick Mahomes.
But not everyone has the infrastructure in place to do what the Chiefs did.
Speaking of the Chiefs, does anyone beat the Chiefs?
Or do what the Ravens did. The Ravens drafted Lamar 32 overall. And now you're talking about 5 guys going in the top 10. A couple of these teams are going to miss. It could be the Bears.
You think the Bears?
My PTSD tells me it's going to be the Bears missing. But you don't. At the end of the day, you don't know.
You don't know. They could all go in and be. I mean, you look at. I hate to bring it up, but
and everyone this time of year brings up the reasons why this guy's not going to succeed or why this guy is going to succeed.
You don't know.
No one knows.
Hey, you got to give him.
Last year, quarterbacks go 1-2. What happens to the guy who goes number 1? Well, he's putting in like the worst possible situation ever in Carolina, and on top of that, needed a big adjustment period to get into the NFL and start having success, and there was nothing to help him do that in Carolina versus the guy who went 2 overall, which also looked like a not-so-great situation, but a new head coach and a young offensive coordinator who went to Michigan Tech really helped him grow in year 1 and have one of the best rookie seasons ever for a quarterback. Yeah. But you don't know.
I think it's. I mean, look. Do I have to bring up Mr. Irrelevant?
Yeah, that too.
You know what I'm saying? Like
the 49ers, a team in 2021 who drafted a quarterback 3rd overall that played 2 games in Trey Lance, traded him to Dallas because they hit on this 7th round pick that could do exactly what Kyle Shanahan was asking him to do.
Yeah. I mean, and it's tough to tell. You're either going to get the bang for your buck or you're going to bust, and that is how the draft goes in any.
That's why it's exciting.
In any sport.
It's fun that so many people pay attention to it because it's National Football League. There's no off season. Everyone's going to dissect every little pick, especially in the first round, especially in the top 10. So we'll just have to see what happens. Detroit rolling out the red carpet with their Hollywood sign on the highway. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people not happy about that.
Here's one for you. If you're in the top 10, right?
Sure.
You have a top 10 pick in the draft. Do you take a quarterback and use it as trade value to get something else that you might want?
Not after you pick him, potentially. I mean, the only situation like that I can think of off the top of my head is Eli Manning saying, I don't want to play in San Diego. And then they swapped quarterbacks to really great, probably both Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and Eli Manning and Philip Rivers. I don't know. But Minnesota's going to have to trade up to get JJ, or else somebody else
is going to get JJ.
Is going to nab him. So,
but he's probably not. Is he? I mean, depending on where he lands, maybe he's a starter.
Well, if he goes to Minnesota, that's why I think their situation is so interesting because they signed Sam Darnold, who is another guy who's been put in a lot of bad situations, drafted by the Jets. That speaks for itself. Yeah. I don't need to elaborate anymore. He was drafted by the Jets, and then he goes to Carolina with Matt Rule. And I don't think I need to elaborate on that. It was Carolina and their last couple of years, and it's just been bad news. So I think they have Sam Darnold there to be the starter. JJ's only 20 or 21. He just turned 21, or he's still 20. He's a young quarterback, and I know he played a lot at Michigan, but he wasn't asked to do what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. So I think for a guy like that, it makes sense that he's going to need a little bit of time versus Caleb Williams. You're a guy day one, you got weapons, and
you need to be able to throw a football.
You're going to be under the microscope right away. So it's different. Every situation's different.
J.J. McCarthy threw the football, but when you look at the pieces around him, he didn't have to always throw the football.
No. Blake Corum was arguably the MVP
Give
of that
it to
team.
Blake. What's our play? Give it to Blake and get out of the way.
Donovan Edwards. I mean,
Or
go down the list.
But
at the same time, you think back to the Rose Bowl, the throw he made to Roman Wilson, and the flea flicker where he caught it back here, and those were huge plays. Leverage downs, 3rd and 4th downs that he stepped up.
That throw to Roman Wilson might be
that was awesome.
Throw. It might be a top.
I know it was tipped,
Rose Bowl. You think it's a top 10 in the Rose Bowl?
Got the job done.
Maybe.
That was an all-time Rose Bowl.
Maybe a top 20.
Saban's last game.
Yeah.
And Michigan goes on to win the national title over Washington. Yeah. Let's wrap up this part of the show before we get to Matt Majkrzak. Tradition unlike any other, the 88th Masters. Scotty Scheffler is the best golfer in the world. We knew that going in, but oh my gosh, no one could catch him.
No, they couldn't.
On Sunday. We're talking about Sunday. The whole tournament was a little strange because of the weather. We started in a delay on Thursday, and then Friday you had the wind where hardly anyone shot below par, and then you got to the weekend and you started to see, Scheffler's the best player in the world. He knows Augusta. He's won there before, won in 2022. No one could catch him on Sunday, and there were guys with big-time pedigree behind him. Colin Morikawa was only 1 stroke back entering Sunday, has won 2 majors. Max Homa's been sniffing around there for a while. He wasn't quite at Scheffler's level when it mattered most. And the new guy, Ludwig Oberg. He was fantastic, especially on the front 9. Then, he goes in the water on 11. And Scheffler's going to make you pay. You're not going to catch him.
No, you're not.
Even if he didn't go in the water on 11, he parsed that hole because he doubled that hole. He's still a stroke back Scheffler by the end of 18. So, Scotty was looking in the rearview mirror the whole time, knowing.
And those two birdies he got on the late holes and then par.
They can't catch up.
Bryson DeChambeau was in the mix for a little bit too, but he fell off.
Yeah, leader entering. Friday, we played really good on Thursday and Friday.
And when you hear Scotty Scheffler talk about, his win press conference, and he said, I feel like I'm playing really good golf right now, and it's like, what?
You think?
Yeah, you think?
I think it's. He's won 3 of the last 4 tournaments he's played in.
Yeah, he's rolling.
A lot's been made of his mentality when it comes to being a star in the world of golf, and he's kind of reserved and stays out of the spotlight, which you have to respect. He's not all over your TV doing endorsements and everything. He just shows up to golf tournaments and wins them.
Well, and the big thing that he talked about too was keeping his emotions in check, because when you think about it, they're playing at the biggest tournaments in the world. There's so much pressure. It's on live television. There's thousands. I mean, the Masters. He's
so composed. He talked about when he won it 2 years ago, he had so many nerves.
Yeah.
Didn't show it this time around.
But to be
he's outstanding.
I mean, as he's walking up to the 18th green to tap in his par, knowing, okay, I'm gonna, I just won it again. Yeah,
it's just, I think everyone acknowledged, we're watching the best golfer in the world right now who is on a historic heater, and who knows how long it's going to last. Now, the thing with him is he's had most of his success from January to April. So what's he going to do the rest of the season when you got 3 more majors out there and everything else? Excited to watch, but it was still a fun Masters. I think.
Does Scotty Scheffler have 3 more green jackets in him, or 4
to reach 5?
To reach 5 to tie Tiger, to be in the same conversation.
Jack's
Jack
the only
Nicklaus.
one with 6. Yep. Tiger has 5. I think
Scheffler now 2.
Scheffler has 2. He hasn't won another major. I think that's next up for him.
Yeah.
But obviously, he knows what he's doing at Augusta.
Yeah.
I wouldn't rule it out. I'd say he wins at least one more.
Yeah.
But you never know. Bubba Watson won 2, and then the
That
rest
was
of
it.
his career, last 10 years, the last one was in 14.
Yeah.
He hasn't been there. He hasn't really been in contention. You never know when
It's your
the
day.
window's going to close
Yeah.
on these guys where, Scotty's the most dominant player in the world right now, and probably this is the most dominant stretch we've seen from anyone since Tiger in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That's not comparing him
To Tiger.
directly apples to Tiger Woods, but that's a fact that nobody's been this dominant for the last couple of months. Even go back a year to last season. I know he didn't win a major last year, but he was playing really well, world number 1. He's the guy right now in the world of golf. We'll see if it carries over into the future.
Yeah. We could touch on Tiger and making the cut
Yes.
again, 24
in a row,
24
dating
in a
back
row,
to 97.
which is just insane to me.
And then the wheels fell off on Saturday and Sunday,
Yeah,
which was a bummer.
you
But
know.
the guy had played 24 holes of golf coming into the tournament this entire calendar year. So the last 4 months, he had played 24 holes of competitive golf and withdrew. And then he plays his 18 on Thursday, and you say, oh, Tiger, all right. And then he plays 23 on Friday. Sorry, he played, 13 holes on Thursday. And then 23 on Friday. Very
gassed.
little rest
Gassed,
for a guy that it takes so much to get his body ready to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
He's in the 80s on Saturday, 77 on Sunday. I think there's a chance for Tiger to compete at majors in the future. I don't think he's going to be playing in a lot of the other tournaments. But if he can figure out how to get his body right for 4 whole days, you saw he was in the mix Thursday and Friday because he was, for the most part, healthy, or at least able to walk the course.
And rested, and I think that's a big thing for him.
It's just, he's 48 years old. For anyone who's 48, it's really tough to compete at the level of, Scotty Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, these guys in their mid-20s who are out there feeling good every day. But add on all the injuries that Tiger's had in his career, the fused back, the fused ankle, car accident a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. So, we'll see what he does going forward. But I think it's good. He's going to do it, especially at the Masters.
Yeah.
Because he's won it 5 times. Obviously, returning champions can play for however long they want to, really. Freddie Couples was out there even this year. He's in his 60s.
Why not?
We'll probably see that for a long time because Tiger's still got that competitive juice,
And
which is what I really love about him.
Yeah, and you never know when it's going to be your day, right? I mean, you never know when you get out there on the golf course. Some days your swing is better.
Ball speed's over 180, and it's like,
Yeah, it's wild.
that's a really good number
it's
for
wild.
anyone on
It's
the
wild.
tour, let alone 48-year-old Tiger Woods, who's going through it. But I think the big win was obviously making the cut for the 24th straight time, and then, on top of that, completing all 4 days.
Yeah.
Didn't look pretty on Saturday and
Didn't
Sunday,
look pretty, but he completed it.
Yeah.
I got 2 things left on the Masters. I want to see Rory McIlroy complete the career Grand Slam.
I do
want
too, but
to
I don't
see
think
it
it's ever going to happen.
I don't know if it's going to happen.
I lost a lot of faith this year because if you remember going into last year, I think Rory was the favorite
He was.
when Jon Rahm won.
Won.
It. I put a little change on it even. I was really feeling good for Rory. He missed the cut last year, and then I dropped my pen. He didn't play well all weekend. He was just not in it.
No, he wasn't.
It's just like
He was there.
with
but he wasn't
Rory,
there.
I'm like, prove it, man.
Yeah, and I've seen him
Well,
win.
he's got to win another major too. I know the Masters is the one he really needs because it would be the career Grand Slam, but it's been almost 10 years since he won a major of any kind.
Yeah.
So, I hope he
gotta
can.
win.
I hope he can. I don't have a whole lot of faith in it, though. I think that'll wrap up this part of the show. As we mentioned, NMU men's basketball coach Matt Majkrzak joining us now in studio to talk a lot from the transfer portal to his 2024 recruiting class to this past season when they were GLIAC regular season champions. So we'll throw it right now to head coach Matt Majkrzak. All right, we are now joined by a very special guest, of course, the head coach of Northern Michigan men's basketball, Matt Majkrzak, fueling up with his monster energy here because, well, you've been in the portal, you've been a busy guy, but let's start with this past season. Champions again, GLIAC regular season champions after going 14-4 in the conference. Some of your leaders this year really showed out. May have a different look next season, but, I mean, what about this season was memorable for you as a coach?
Yeah. I mean, the 13 wins in a row in the middle. I mean, I think that, that's the part you want to remember because as a coach, you tend to focus on the things that didn't go as well. I think the end of the year, some of those disappointments are still frustrating, but at the same time, that frustration is a lot easier to handle when you have a conference championship trophy and a net and are going to get rings and have some really, really cool things to show for how good the season was.
What was the recipe during that 13-game winning streak? Because it was a lot of fun to watch, especially those games at home. It was a lot of close games coming out on top. What did it take during that stretch to keep it rolling like that?
So I think this year's team, and every year is different. And as we're going about next year's team, which we'll talk about and putting that together, we've had maybe more of these discussions lately, and they're not so focused on one thing, but they're more broad. And this year's team was really unique in the sense of when our 5 starters were fully healthy and they were playing together and they were right. They had so much shared chemistry because it was the same group from the year before and mostly the same group from 2 years before that, that it felt like they were almost, unbeatable in the sense of they just knew how to navigate a game. Like, all right, we're down 10. All right, we'll come back. We'll get up 2. Okay, we're up 15. Well, we'll keep it there. And so even when we'd sub and might lose some leads, those guys would always just come back and retake the lead or find a way to do it. And that was awesome. The problem was early in the year when we were injured and late in the year when we were injured, as soon as that chemistry wasn't there, the collective group of those 5 was so dominant, but individually, it wasn't like we could just plug and play someone because what made that team special was their shared chemistry. So as great as things can be, i.e. shared chemistry and those guys all know each other, I think that also caused some of our weaknesses. But that 13-game win streak, that was that one long stretch of the year where everyone was healthy, everyone's practicing, and nothing was really going wrong, which not only makes those 5 play better, but now we're really able to develop those 6th, 7th, 8th guys to be in perfect roles with those 5. So we're feeling good, everything's great, and then Brian gets hurt, and then Max gets hurt, and now it's like, we have to completely regroup, revamp, and so I think that was the biggest thing, and it's a boring answer. It's kind of, I hate it that that's the answer, but the depth this year caused us to be more affected by injuries.
Yeah. How do you kind of change your attitude as a coach as guys are going down? You know the production may not be the same, and you're trying to make little tweaks. How difficult is that, especially late in the season when Brian and Max go down, and you have to work around some of those things?
Yeah. I mean, so like for instance, the Tech game, we're down both Brian and Max for that, and we were redshirting some guards because they got injured in the preseason, so we literally didn't have guards. We had 1 true guard and 2 kind of guards. So I mean, that week we put in the flex offense that I ran in 4th grade, and we ran the flex for a little bit. I mean, you just have to find a creative way to still win the game or try to win the game. It just gets difficult, and I think the other part of it that I think this year really showed with us is you're taking, let's say, Carson Smith, who's might be the best shooting guard in the league when he's in the starting lineup. Like, we love him as his role. Well, now we're having Carson go play, let's say, Max's role. So Carson's a little bit worse than Max, but he steps up. Like the Tech game, he had 23.
Right.
So Carson did it. He stepped up. Well, now we're taking, Riley Brooks is a freshman, and he has Carson's role. Well, okay, so now maybe he's not quite as good as Carson, and Carson's not quite as good as Max, but now someone else is taking Riley's role, and it's the trickle effect of all of it. And then the lack of continuity, they're all just a little off with each other. So I think the learning lessons are we have to do a better job of having a bigger, deeper team all on the same page so that doesn't happen. So I wouldn't say it's the injury's fault. It's probably at the end of the day my fault for we have to do a better job in the future of making sure we can kind of sync up and go in and out of lineups a little bit better. And probably, every year I feel like I'm learning something. That was probably the big takeaway this year.
Yeah. Max Weisbrod, your best player this past season, Conference Player of the Year. It's very rare the past couple of years to see a coach be happy for a guy after entering the transfer portal. And you had nothing but nice things to say about Max. And that's got to be difficult as a coach to see your best player move on and go somewhere else. Talk about those mixed emotions that you felt when he came to that decision.
Yeah, I think for 2 years, I'd seen a lot of players leave programs, D2, low D1, high D1 even these days, D3.
Yeah.
And I've seen how everyone handled it, and everyone handled it differently. And every situation is different. Are they doing it the right way? Are they whatever? And I specifically thought about it, and I thought if we do lose Max, I'm just not going to go down that. Max is one of my favorite kids I've ever coached. Most of this year's team, honestly, was in that camp.
Yeah.
And if our relationship is only about him playing basketball for me only, well, then it's basically a lie, like realistically. Then it's a transactional thing where I only like Max, and I only like Max's family because of what he can do for me. So as soon as he leaves, if my feeling is that means the whole time it was just a transactional thing. Now, I'm not, everyone has their own stance in their own way and their own program, and no one knows what goes on behind the scenes. Max handled everything perfectly. Mm-hmm. He was open, he was honest, he did it in a time span that allowed us to recover in the best way possible. Kids we're recruiting now in the portal, younger kids, any of them that reach out to Max, he's probably going to say more positive things about our program than anyone, even though he's transferring. And Max also chose to go to a school that, to me, was a clear jump up. There were some schools that were recruiting him that he just straight up said no to. He wasn't going to go to another Division II. He wasn't going to go to a low-level D1. But if he got that solid mid-major opportunity, he said, I wanted to go. And would I do that? I don't know. But if I said no, that would be a lie, because I think the Northern Iowa coach makes 7 or 8 times what I do, and if Northern Iowa called, it would probably be there. So at some point you have to just, I think, look at yourself, look at the landscape, and just try to do the right thing. So every kid that transfers, I'm not going to necessarily be happy about it. I'm still not super thrilled selfishly that I don't get to coach Max again.
Right.
But in his instance, I think he made a good choice. It was well thought out. It was well planned. He handled it in the right way. And I like him enough that it would have felt disingenuous to handle it any other way.
And then
go ahead.
And then, Coach, when we talk about Max and this past season, seeing some of the shots that he made late in the game, a couple game winners, a couple game clinchers, what was it like in that moment to see a player at that level, rise to the occasion and make those shots? Yeah,
and I think this is the cool part about him being gone is I can share some stuff I probably wouldn't share. After Duluth and Moorhead, we lost. That was kind of the end of the early struggles after we went on the 13-game win streak. In Duluth and Moorhead, he had a game-winning shot, and he played really well both games, but he missed both. And he came in my office and said, I don't think I took either shot well. What do you think? Why did I miss them? I didn't, I felt like I didn't even give myself the best chance to make them. What do I need to do differently? And, I wasn't going to have that conversation until he wanted to have it. But we went through for probably 10 minutes. It doesn't take long. Different scenarios. Hey, you're down 2. Hey, you're down 3. This is what you should look for, all of that. And the part for me that's fun is I got to not only see what everyone else got to see, which was the absolute high of making those shots in front of a crowd, in front of your teammates in the big moments. They get replayed on TV. You know, like everyone sees that. But I got to see him be gutted and devastated about missing the 2 and then get in the gym and work on those exact shots and those exact moments and mentally like do it. So for me, it's like, it just felt like, of course he made. I watched him work on this. That's what that guy does. He finds ways to solve problems. He missed 2. He's not going to keep missing them. And, you're not going to make every one, but that part, that's like the whole fun part of coaching is we get to see that going from the missing 2 to making those and the steps in between. Where on the outside, sometimes it looks like, oh, you just made them. Well, he had to miss a bunch to get to the point where he's able to make those confidently.
The league this year was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking about the home
Not
games.
fun, but yes, fun.
When you look at it from the 30,000-foot view.
100%. Great if you're not me. Yeah.
But some battles, that Lake
Yes,
State
yeah,
game where Max won it. You guys maybe had no business winning that game,
Yeah.
but you stuck it out. And even at halftime, I remember watching you walk around, and it didn't look like you were having the most fun. The Grand Valley game, double overtime, you guys came out on the wrong end of that one.
Yep.
But another fun battle to watch.
Yep.
Not maybe the
100%.
coach.
No, yeah. No, yeah, for sure.
But the strength of the league with Grand Valley and Ferris and Lake State this season, what was that like? You guys kind of making each other better throughout the year?
Yeah, I think, the GLIAC is, having been in a few different leagues, I think the unique part about our league is just how balanced it is. I don't think there's any bad teams. That's what us coaches complain about to each other is we just wish there were some bad teams that you could know you're going to win. But in most cases, even the teams on the bottom of the standing, they're maybe young, but by the end of the year, they have as good a chance of winning as anyone. And so I think that part of it makes it fun from a spectator standpoint, and it does as a coach and a player too. You want to go into every game and know that you can win, but also know that you can lose because it makes you better. I thought this year, Lake State, Ferris, and us, it felt like coin flips almost every time. And it felt like every time we played one of those 2, it was going to just come down to like some level of randomness, like Max hits a shot or Max misses a shot or this call, that call, like all these little things. But I think that does make you better because it's going to be that close. So the margin might be, hey, in the first half we didn't guard this under out of bounds right. Oh, that's why we lost, because it's going to come down to the end anyway. So it makes everything heightened and more important. And I really think that helped push, all 3 of us to be better. And if you look at the end of it, the region final, so the 3 conferences that, shared the regional, was Ferris versus Lake State. And watching that, and that was another close game, went down to the wire. Was I a little bit bitter about it? Of course. We win the regular season, and those 2 are playing in the Sweet 16, and we lost in the first round. The other part of me is like, all right, we lost to Ferris. Ferris has now won the region, but they're playing in that game. Yeah. We know we can beat Ferris because we beat them twice. We know we can beat Lake State, and they're playing in the Sweet 16. There's a sense of pride you have for your league, and the coaches in our league. Every year, I think we get you get a little closer with them. I used to think this was like a adversarial thing, and it's not. I mean, we're doing the same thing. The best and the worst moments of my professional life I've spent with Steve Hedinga and Andy Bronkema standing 10 feet away from each other. Yep. Ditto for them. So some of the best moments they've had in their professional lives have came at my expense and vice versa. At some point, you almost have this shared thing that you don't have with other people because they weren't part of it. And once you've won some and lost some, you're mad in the moment, but you got to go like, all right, he was good with me when I had that good moment. I'm going to be the same way back.
Yeah, it's really a Calipari and Patino attitude.
They
always went about it. Yeah.
Yes, hugs and yeah.
But coaching in March for college basketball coaches is a little bit different than coaching the rest of the season because you're under such a microscope, even at the D2 level.
Yep.
What's different about playing in tournaments in March, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, I think, my thing's always been stay calm. So I'm not a calm, anyone who's ever seen me. I would not say my redeeming quality is being calm. But the advantage of that, so the guys that are really quiet, their advantage is they can go nuts once, and it just changes the flow and the landscape of a game. Because when they snap, everyone's like, oh man, coach snapped. He never snaps. Our advantage, mine, but some of the other good coaches in our league I think share this, is at end of games, I talk really soft. It's, hey, relax, we're okay. Just get it there, make a shot. And I think we can calm down in those big moments. We've been really, really successful in tournament play up until this year. I think we've overachieved every year in the tournament until this year, where the only way to achieve would have been to win the conference tournament. I think we maybe lost a little bit of that for whatever reason. Maybe it was pressure, maybe it was the injuries, so everyone was kind of already using more mental power to get back and then couldn't stay calm and focused. But I think the calmest, most focused teams win in March, because everybody is going to try hard. So there's no, if you can't play hard in March, then you got bigger issues and you're probably not on that stage to begin with. So I think it's trying to just stay relaxed, stay calm, do what you do, and not get out of sorts. Because I think more people lose in March than necessarily win. So you just want to not mess it up in some ways.
Right. Men's Final Four in Arizona, you were there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you go every year for the D2 meetings. I mean, what are the stories? I know it was Portal Combat time, but what's that event like for you? Being there with a bunch of other D2 coaches and talking ball, but also it's the same thing where you're going head to head again next year.
Yeah, on the record, we did nothing. It was it's a ton of fun. It's good. So the beauty of college athletics, I wouldn't say it's unique to basketball, but anyone involved with college athletics in any way, is you meet all these people at different places in your life. And I was in Chadron, Nebraska, and I met a bunch of people. I was in Green Bay, and I met a bunch of people. I was in Bemidji, Minnesota, met a bunch of people. And by nature, when you move places, because that's what college athletics does, you start losing touch with some of those people because you're in a different city and you don't see them. The beauty of the basketball world is the Final Four provides an opportunity where you get to see those people at minimum once a year. Now you see them some recruiting and some of that kind of stuff, but it's really nice to catch up with all these people that you enjoy being around, you like being around, but you don't get a chance to see face to face as much as you normally do. And then, the idea of it is professional development and learning, and are there clinics and things like that you do? Yeah, but I think sometimes the best thing is just talking to other coaches and, hey, how are you handling this? How what do you think? How should we handle this? And yes, this year the portal was, if you had the checkbox of everybody says the same things to each other, there's like a list of 20 things, and you could just go right down, and it's, hey, where are you staying? What's going on? If I can help you, let me know. There's like the shorthand. The portal this year was definitely shorthanded. The most enjoyable part of that for me, which I told Max as soon as I got back, because he's still here, he goes to school here, so at least for now, is everyone was like coming up to me like I lost a loved one, like, I'm so sorry about Max. I'm like, no, he's alive and well. He's okay. It'll be fine. But no, I think that definitely dominated the discussion this year. But it's a great event, I think, and gives us all a chance to catch up.
Start looking forward a little bit to, you have two guys signed out of the portal.
Yes.
Obviously, you're filling out the roster for next year. Tell us a little bit about those two guys. I know at least one of them you played against this past season.
Yes.
So who are these two guys, and who are people going to be watching in Marquette next year?
For sure. And the whole portal thing, it goes both ways. So we lost guys. I think everyone's aware of that, and that gets talked about a lot. Sure. I think sometimes it's lost, like we're also adding, it's not just a one-way street. So we got Gerald Gittins. He's at the University of Mary. He's originally from the Bronx, New York, and then he played high school for a couple years, I think all 4, in Wisconsin. Shockingly.
There you go.
That was
there's our connection.
Yes. Yeah, somehow it always goes back to that. No. So we saw him play. I remember watching him as a sophomore in high school for the first time. Out of high school, we at that point had Justin Brookins and Brian. And so we didn't recruit him because he's, a point guard and we weren't going to play him and he's pretty good. So we said, we like him, but we can't take him. Out of junior college, we had Max Weisbrod and Brian, which was last year. Again, we liked him, knew him, couldn't take him. Said, all right, And so he goes to the University of Mary. He's, I think, led him in scoring, assists, and second in rebounding or something. But very good for him as a junior. And, I never even, I knew he signed there. I thought it was a great get for them, and that was probably the last I thought of it. And just the way the world works, someone saw the tweet about Max and Carson leaving, called Gerald and said, would you be interested in Northern? An AAU coach calls me and says, would you be interested in Gerald? I said, sure. And pretty much it was that easy because he knew us, we knew him. So that's the kind of, that's what we're trying to get out of the portal. Not some random, but something where it was someone we knew, we've spent time watching, we've spent time getting to know him in some way.
Right.
And then maybe now it's the right fit, which it was in this case. And then the other kid, very different story, but a lot of the same vibes, I think. We played against Missouri S&T earlier in the year in the Dells. We lost, so I'd watched a bunch of film prepping for the game. He had 22 on us, beat us up pretty good. I'm watching the game going like, man, I like that kid. He's really hard to guard. The season wasn't even over yet. We were in the tournament, and he entered the portal, and we knew Carson Smith was moving on at the end of the year,
Right.
and we knew we needed a shooter. And I'm like, well, I watched him be great against us. He averaged 19 as a sophomore, and it was one of those you look at your Twitter. I'm like, oh yeah, that would be perfect. And so immediately you call him and text him and whatever else, and there's a mutual interest. And then you wait about a month, and he gets D1 stuff that may or may
Right.
not happen. And I think we probably beat most of the D2s for him. I think everybody wanted a guy that had that much success over a 4-year career, and he ends up wanting to come here partly because he saw our team. And I mean, he said it. I'll say it because I think it's true. He goes, "Well, Coach, I thought we were better than you guys, and you won the conference and won 22 games, so." You must be doing something right, because I had quite a bit of success. So, I guess I'd like to be part of that. So, it's always different, but I think when there's some level of familiarity and comfort, it's a better thing.
So there you go. The transfer portal's that easy. They just come.
Yeah.
They just say, "Yeah, coach, I'm in."
Yeah.
Yes. The other 105 stories I can't tell ended not like that. So, but the two we got are great.
There you go.
And then coach four freshmen. I mean, incoming freshmen.
Yes.
You got to talk about them. I mean, 8,216 points between them. I mean, that's
Insane.
a stat line that just kind of stands out. What can you say about those guys and them coming in?
Yeah, we've had a lot of great classes. I really think this is our best one. And again, there's been some good ones. Like Brian and Dylan came in together with Sam and Jackson, all of which have been staples. They're all, again, the stories are all different, but the concept is these are all kids that we've seen a ton of. Why we have tended to like high school kids more than transfers is because, and maybe this comes back to the why I'm happy for Max thing, it doesn't become this 4-year relationship in college. It can really be this 6-year relationship that starts when they're in high school. And by the time they set foot on campus officially, we feel like they've already been part of our basketball team for a while. And all of those guys have that in common. We've recruited all of them, long. And I think like Johnny, it's going to be so exciting to have. I mean, I think he's going to be the best UP player in college since Foster Wonders. I'll put that out there. I feel very confident in that.
Off the top of my head, I would agree with you.
Yeah. And he came to our camp, I think, when he was in 8th grade or freshman. So I've gotten to see him like literally grow and figuratively grow, get more athletic. Obviously, we'd seen him a bunch, and then this year when I watched him play Marquette, and I'd seen the film to know he'd gotten more athletic and all that, but you can't really see until you see in person. And I left the gym with a feeling I've had 3 times. It was Max Weisbrod the first time I saw him live, Brian the first time I saw him live, and Johnny. And not that I thought they were the 3 best players I've ever seen, but there's this thing that only point guards can do, and only emotional point guards can do. Because all 3 of those guys, they have a lot of strengths. Their flaw and their strength's the same. They're emotional. They wear their emotions. But there's a way that a person can captivate an entire gym. Like the only comparison's like Gladiator. Like, are you not entertained?
Yeah.
Where it doesn't matter. Like in that gym, he's at Marquette. It's mostly Marquette people. By the end of that, I think even the Marquette people were half cheering for him. I mean, there's a way and an emotional way you can dominate a game that Brian has and Max has, and Johnny has that in him. And once you see it, who cares? Who cares how tall? Now he's good, but also that it thing is really hard to replicate, and so we're really excited about it. His dad went to Northern.
Yep.
His dad's the all-time leader in assists. Like, all of that's fine. That's not why we took him. We took him because he's really good. And then when you throw in all the other stuff, now it's this really good player that has a really awesome story. And then the Wisconsin kids, we got 3 of them again. 2 of them are the highest ranked kids that didn't sign D1, which, the ranking stuff, everyone complains about rankings. In Wisconsin, there's a guy named Mark Miller. He does the rankings.
Yeah.
Everyone complains because no one ever is happy where they're ranked. If you're
Right,
ranked 10th, you want to be 9th. So the highest ranked Wisconsin kid that doesn't end up going D1 over the last 12 years, it's all on there. Almost all of them have been first team all-league D2 players. Most of them have ended up All-Americans. One of the few that won't end up an All-American is Max Weisbrod, but he probably would have been if he stayed for 4 years.
Yeah.
The second ranked player in that class, Marcus Tomashik, doing pretty well. Dylan was 1 in his class and Brian was 2, or vice versa. I don't remember because we had them both. And it's over. Owen White was highly,
Yeah.
Patrick Cartier at Hillsdale, who's now starting at Colorado State. Like, these guys have been really successful. So A, Mark Miller must be ranking pretty well, and B, we have the top 2 in this class coming in. And if history proves anything, they're probably gonna have a chance to be pretty good.
Let's go back to Johnny, because I know the 2 of us sitting in the newsroom a lot of nights getting calls from St. Ignace. We wish we watched him play a lot more, first of all, but that's tough with him being 2.5 hours away. But it was like, yeah, here's the score, St. Ignace won, and Johnny Ingles had 42. Like,
St. Ignace won by 30, Johnny had 48 and 12 threes.
It was a couple nights later, and then they go all the way to East Lansing, and it's history. But families and parents are important to the kids you want to recruit. Doug and Doreen are legends not only at St. Ignace but across the UP and at Northern. How cool is that to have them a part of this kid, Johnny, coming into your program and their roots being so strong in the UP, Doug going in the UP Sports Hall of Fame next month? How cool is that for your program to kind of reach back to the UP roots that the Ingles family has?
100%. I mean, it's so I'm gonna go roundabout, but I'll get there. So the Dan Hurley thing, everyone's talking about it with the parents.
Sure.
Like how
Yeah.
parents can sink your program, and he's 100% right. Parents are a better indicator of a kid's success in recruiting than the kid is, because most 17 and 18-year-olds haven't fully learned to express themselves, especially boys.
Sure.
Yet. So if you look at the parents and they're negative, that kid likely will trend that way at some point, and he just hasn't expressed himself. If the parents are awesome, kid gonna get there. Minnie Battelle, Lindsay's best player, met her parents after senior night. It took me about 10 minutes to go, oh yeah, that makes sense. like that's why she's like it's just that. I don't want to say it's that easy, but it's almost that easy. And Doug and Doreen not only are that, that part of it, it could be from anywhere. But now you add in all the stuff you talked about, which is, their ties to the UP, the whole state of Michigan.
Right.
And if anything, it makes, and this might be a me thing, I am more cautious and careful when we recruit kids of alums and people that have those connections, because you want to make sure you're doing it in a really respectful way, and you're outline everything in a very honest way. And some of that with Johnny early on was, we like him, we'd love to have him here. We're not sure what the timeline is on when he'll be ready, and the way they handled that was, okay, thanks for telling us. We agree. He's got some room to go. And most parents, 95% of parents, right there would have been like, we don't like this Northern guy. He just said, Johnny's not ready yet.
Right.
Like, that's ridiculous. Of course he's ready. The fun part is when their reaction is that, and then by the end of this year, you get to call him back and go, he's ready. Like, it creates this, now they go, okay, he is ready. Like, we agree. Like, he's good to go. And I think that allowing me to be honest with them and then their feedback being honest and those open conversations, it's you'd think that all the people that have the pedigree that they have would be able to do that. Not always, but about half the time it goes the other way. Yeah. They're like, nah, we know everything. We're right. Like, and they were the opposite. And when people actually do know everything and are still, humble about it and still open to having conversations and still, part of the process in a great manner, it checks so many boxes. And I think Johnny's going to be a tremendous basketball player in Northern Michigan. I think that. What I know is Johnny's going to be a tremendous person and unbelievably successful at whatever he chooses to do. Hopefully that includes a 4-year basketball career at Northern Michigan.
Yeah. I think before we go, we got to talk about Jack Golke, the guy you went up against multiple times, and I dug for the video, and we didn't have any, and I was supremely disappointed because he played up here when he was at Hillsdale for 5 years. This, of course, Jack Golke of Oakland, in his 6th year this year, went off on Kentucky in the first round, 10 threes. Was that PTSD for you? Because he went off a couple times.
No, it was nice. I liked it. No, it made me feel great. Okay, if you can. Now at Oakland, he literally only shot threes, but at Hillsdale,
that was crazy. That Greg Camp brought him in to shoot threes.
Yeah. Nothing else.
Yeah, there's a video of him,
and it worked so well.
Only shooting threes. Like, he's over on the sideline with a shooter machine, and he's only at the 3-point line, and he never moves.
Well, he didn't practice 2-pointers once he left Hillsdale. Yeah. So what was it? Was he their best player in those days for Hillsdale? I mean, were you surprised? Did you know he was at Oakland and was in the tournament when that happened, when they upset Kentucky?
I'm trying to think how many people I'm going to offend with this. So when I don't know if he's their best player. I think he could have been. He wasn't at any point until his senior year. His senior year, they had a couple guys that I would call them fairly even, and he was one of those even guys. He would not be in the top 15 to 20 D2 players I've coached against because he was fairly one-dimensional and shot threes. Yeah. Saying that, when he entered the portal, I text Missouri Valley coaches, MAC coaches, and I said, like, hey, the stats are going to be so-so, but his three-point shot will translate to any level. Like, it doesn't matter. He's going to be able to get his three-point shot off, and he's so strong. I'm like, so if you're looking for a solid shooter-defender, which everyone is, I'm like, you're going to have to be tough and ignore the numbers. Like, you're not going to get – they all want their D2 transfers to average 20. Like, ignore it. He's perfect for the role. And I have the receipts, so that's good. I can show it to people. But no, and so I think that's like the power of a role player. Like, his role transcends levels. Yeah. Like, I think now if he went to a small D3, might he be able to average 22 a game? Probably, but I think if he's at the highest level of D3 or in a high major conference, his numbers are going to be more similar than maybe any player in the country because he does one thing at an absolute peak level. The part that made me feel better is we're pretty good at guarding shooters. We've for the most part been able to take away some of the best guys, Tomashik, et cetera. When we guarded him, Carson Smith is why. Like, he just locks on to dudes and doesn't let them get threes. And one of my biggest meltdowns, probably the only time I've ever freaked out on Carson, was at Hillsdale. I'm like, how can you not lock on? He does one thing. Just stay attached to him. And then in the tournament, we're up like 10 and the game's over. And he just kept firing and like just what you saw. Yeah. And he kept finding ways, and he'd miss one, didn't care, make the next one. And I'm like, Carson, he's going to shoot it every time. Just stay attached. And I've seen Carson do this to so many guys. And I'm like, what is your problem? Like, he's not going to drive by you. Just lock onto him. So watching John Calipari in Kentucky not be able to do it made me feel a little bit better. No, I didn't afterwards, probably because we won. I didn't have to leave my job like Cal. Like, I think he was like, Jack Galkey, I didn't do it. I'm going to Arkansas.
It's over.
Because we won, I was able to at least stay. They didn't push me out. So that was nice. But no, it did make me feel better.
Yeah, I mean, Oakland probably doesn't get there, all because of him. They had the mid-major player of the year as well. But, I mean, he had his one shining moment, and it was pretty cool, covering a lot of D2 hoops this year, that he came up the ranks and he could shoot the three-point shot, and he did it on the biggest stage.
And he's
in
an
college
awesome
basketball.
kid that works hard. You don't get to be that good if you didn't work extremely hard. And we know him, he's a Wisconsin guy, and he's a great person. And so when it happens to great people, it's always a little bit more fun, and it makes everyone, a little bit happier about it and cheer for him a little bit more.
Yeah. It was funny seeing the videos of him playing against Tyler Hero in high school. And he was a Kentucky guy and whatever, both Wisconsin guys as well, where they came up. So
He busted my bracket, though.
he did.
He busted
Kentucky in the Final Four.
a lot of people's bracket.
Yeah.
But I mean, 10 for 20 in March Madness is not. We may not see it again for a while.
Even that NC State game, we were watching that, going to overtime. They just came up a little short. And then NC State keeps it rolling all the way to the Final Four.
Burns, man. I mean, I love a big man that, just goes to work.
Big man balling. He was. Anything else, Keegan?
I think, Coach, next year, I mean, you look at the end of this year, you guys win the GLIAC regular season championship, close it out in the Barry. Next year, you won't be playing in the Barry. I've been sifting through old Northern Michigan basketball footage, and it's the Barry, it's the Barry, it's the Barry, it's the Barry. So it's going to feel a little different next year, and how do you kind of prepare yourself and the team for playing in a different place now?
Yeah, I've been, if I had a soapbox about basketball in general terms, and mostly I've thought of it in terms of high school, but I think all levels this applies. Smaller gyms are better than bigger gyms. Let's fill it up. Let's have it be loud. There's a line that I heard the other day that I really enjoy. You don't build a church for Christmas. Yes, the Tech game, it's going to sell out. Spoiler. We know that. But there's a lot of other games throughout the year where I think it'll be the perfect size. I think it's going to look, everything Northern's done on campus, if you go around, everything that's been done has been done at such a high clip. It all looks visually appealing and beautiful, and it checks all the boxes. This is going to be the same. The hallways are going to be redone. It's going to feel like you're entering an arena. I think for our program, this is the biggest positive step forward that's happened. And, I'm hoping that we ended the Barry on it's the first regular season championship that hockey, women's basketball, or men's basketball has ever had in the Barry.
Yeah.
It's wild. If you look at it, kind of weird. So hopefully the curse of the Barry's lifted. Hockey now is going to go on a roll.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we can keep the momentum rolling, because we ended that the way we wanted to. And now it's important to us to start the new place in the right way. So I'm excited about it. I think the first year, it's going to be loud, and it's going to sell out probably more than once. And, if the women's team keeps rolling the way they have been, and we can keep it rolling, I think it's going to become a thing that people do have to get tickets early for. And I'd rather have 14 of the most loyal people that care the most in there than a few more anyway. And I think it's going to be loud. I think it's going to be fun. It's not going to be Hedgecock, but it's gonna bring back some of the memories of those Hedgecock days for people. And I think it's a great step forward for us.
Awesome. We are looking forward to it, and we will relieve you of your time given to us. We really appreciate it, Matt, coming on the show. UP Power, first guest ever.
Wow.
What an honor for Mr. Matt Majkrzak.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I've accomplished this year.
But that's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. Thanks for joining us, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify, and we will see you again next week.